Morning, everyone. If you please stand. Firstly, Happy New Year to everyone and welcome to the meeting of the 8th of January. I'd just like to acknowledge we're meeting on the land of the Palawa people, who are the traditional and ongoing custodians of the land in which we meet today. I'd just like to pay and acknowledge the elders past and present and the Aboriginal people here with us this morning. Thank you very much. Firstly, just like to start by saying apologies that we're here today. We had a meeting on the 23rd of December where we had this matter before us that we're debating again today, which ended in a tied vote. Unfortunately, procedurally, we didn't get it quite right in that we needed to have a motion to refuse or a motion to approve at that meeting. So we're here today. Also just noting that yesterday afternoon we received a letter from the proponent asking for an extension of time, which will be discussed here this morning as to whether we grant that or not. But we'll either move here with a deferral of the motion on the basis that there's an extension of time granted, or we will go ahead and debate and approve or refuse the motion. So they'll be the three options that we get to. I'll come back to that. I'll get Richard to talk about the planning matters in a moment and Duncan to talk about the legal and procedural matters also in a moment or two. But firstly, just wanted to start by saying we have apologies to the meeting. They were Councillor Garwood, the Mayor, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Britton and Councillor Marsden. I'd just like to ask if there are any conflicts of interest from any of the councillors present today. There isn't. So I now might hand over to you, Richard, to explain what's happened.
So, in the last short while, we have had a request to extend the time for determination to allow the applicants to consider the issues and determine if there are any modifications or improvements to the proposal that could be made that might ameliorate the concerns of the residents. Now, under normal circumstances, if we weren't in a special meeting situation, that extension of time would be agreed to and we would extend the time. The reasons why that would be the case is because it's in the community's interests and the council's interests for the development to be as good as it can be before it's determined. If there's an opportunity to improve the outcomes for the development, then it's in our interests to pursue that as a council and the community. Granting an extension of time still maintains council's full ability to determine it at some point in the future. There's no loss of decision-making power. Granting the extension of time would also be the best mechanism to ameliorate any costs of, because it would likely eliminate or shrink the issues at dispute, so that if this does go from here to the tribunal, whether it's with an approval or a refusal, the scope of the issues at question may be lessened. So that would be a positive. So with those things in mind, the council's officer's recommendation is that we sign the extension of time, allow that to eventuate and to bring it back to council at a point in time when those things have been explored. So, yeah, so I think that's where I can hand over to Duncan, because that then triggers some procedural issues for the council.
Thank you, Richard.
Hi, councillors. Yep, so it's open to the council to defer this matter under Regulation 24. It's a procedural motion, just need a mover and a seconder. The Mayor to then accept the procedural motion and then a mover and a seconder, and then vote on that. And that could defer the consideration of this matter to the 22nd of January or a later date.
And I'm right, if it's a deferral motion, there is no discussion?
Correct.
And just a point of order, if I may. Does the motion need to be moved before it can be deferred, though? I would have thought.
Yes. Regulation 24 prevents discussion on a procedural motion.
Which motion, Councillor?
Yeah, the motion that's listed in the agenda today cannot be deferred unless it's been moved, I would have thought. Indeed, this discussion probably should have happened after the motion was moved, but
This is just explanation.
it is an explanation, by way of explanation, but the deferral could only come after the motion, the actual motion, item 4.1.
Sorry, 1 second. Councillor, I believe that is the normal conventional practice. It could happen. Someone could move that motion beforehand.
Yes, Councillor, I will take questions this morning.
Thank you. Just a question in what a deferral of 2 weeks could possibly hope to achieve when the main problem seems to be the volume of cars that might use Crown Street. I can't see how that would fundamentally change
The
sufficiently.
extension of time is actually meant to be to the 27th of February, so it's more than 2 weeks.
27th of February. Right, okay, thank you. But I'll still ask the same question. Yep. What could we hope to achieve by having a deferral?
I think there's a belief that the information that was provided about the volumes of cars needs to be further investigated to see whether the development is likely to produce that number of cars. I think on the face of it, that might be an exaggerated number, and I think that what the developers want to do, or the applicant wants to do, is re-interrogate that and actually see whether that actually is the case. So that would be one of the things that they would want to do.
Okay, so I think we've had that explanation. That's really just as a precursor for people to think about. So just noting that we are commencing the meeting at 10:30, we've just done, and there's a recommendation that the special council meeting is to start as soon as possible after 10:30 a.m. on Thursday, January the 8th, 2026. So we've now got the information for us to have a think about. So we now, under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, Council acts as a planning authority in regard to items included in agenda item 4, 2.1. So I might got to go back to 2.1. There we go. Sorry, my apologies again. Local government procedures, Regulation 2025, Regulation 7.1, a meeting is not to start before 5 p.m. unless otherwise determined by absolute majority or by the council committee by simple majority. This decision is required in an absolute majority of council, So the recommendation is that council, by absolute majority pursuant to Regulation 7.1 of the Local Government Meeting and Procedural Regulations 2025, determine that this special council meeting is to start at or as soon as possible after 10:30 a.m. on Thursday, 8 January 2026. Someone move. Councillor Gibson, seconded Councillor Walker. All those in favour? That's all councillors present. Thank you. My apologies for that. It's a bit unusual, this meeting. So now I'll go into 4, which is under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, Council acts as a planning authority in regard to items included in agenda item 4, Planning Authority. 4.1 Development Application DA 0312/2025-160-172A Bathurst Street, change of use to a medical centre, physiotherapy consultancy and a gymnasium. So it is to consider and determine a development application pursuant to this. Is anyone wishing to move a motion? Councillor Gibson, to approve?
Yeah, I'll move it as proposed to allow members of the public to have the opportunity today to speak.
Seconded by Councillor Harris. So we do have speakers for the motion, and we'll start with Ms. Phillip. Sorry, we just note that under the notices of meeting, you only have 2 minutes to speak. You either speak for or against the motion, and you don't say anything disparaging, so tell us your name and address.
Good morning. I'm Carmen Frelick and I live at 3 Twining Street. According to the last special council meeting agenda, page 12, number 5, exit door onto existing laneway. This is confusing as the original name for this door is the fire escape stairwell. So it makes it sound as if 2 doors are going to be put into the laneway wall if the health hub is going to be built. Page 17, section E, neighbouring vegetation. This is pertaining to the community garden. It states that consideration should be given to ensuring minimal disruption to existing vegetation on the north and east side of the building. This is where the community garden is. And yet it states on page 37, section 5, there are no specific standards in the scheme that includes the protection of the vegetation. Again, complete confusion on my part as these two statements fully contradict each other. Page 33, section D, under the complies heading, it states that the speed limit on Crown Street is 50 kilometres an hour. I've always believed the speed limit should be lowered to at least 40 to 45 kilometres an hour, especially the section of Crown Street that bisects Twining Street, then flows onto Balfour Street. This is a much narrower section of Crown Street and is the only section of this street that is one way, with the ratepayers and any renters in this section not allowed to park on this street. It goes on to say that Crown Street flows on in both directions. This is obviously incorrect. It is only the section of Crown Street that is entered and exited from Franklin Street that is 2 ways. I believe absolute chaos would ensue if the narrow street section of Crown was expected to cope with between 120 and up to 1,234 cars per day. There is a safety issue to consider and also problems associated with access to an ambulance, fire truck and or police if and when any of these may be needed, and also access for the rubbish truck to enter the bins. The roads in the area are going to be constantly chock-a-block. I personally believe inner city apartments would be a better option for the former foundry, and an industrial area would be better suited for the health hub, one of which exists off Dowling Street at Launceston, and another one is situated near Launceston Airport. Much more space at these areas with extensive parking and less traffic from the public. The LGH is already having issues regarding parking, so any more traffic would cause pandemonium in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Caroline Horn.
Hello, my name's Caroline Horn. I live on 7 Twining Street as a renter. I believe that the Tasmanian government actively encourages us to be supporting our local businesses like Thrive Life Care and Travenco Engineering, and too much traffic along Crown Street will interfere with their businesses, with their deliveries and forklift operations and many other things. Customers park on Crown Street, Twining Street to visit Travenco, plus there's 2 houses along Crown Street that don't have driveways, so their friends' family have to park on Twining Street. And plus for the people that have to work on the houses along Crown Street, especially if the driveways are vacant, they can't actually go in, so there'll be many cars along there anyway. And also the buildings, there's lots of heritage houses around there and there's previous cracks on them, and if there's too much work around the area, the vibrations will eventually make it even worse. And also, some of you may not like this, but I actually let my cat out during the day. He's been out for 8 years and he actually helps the problems with rats around the area. It's mainly on Crown Street and the corner of Twining and Margaret Street. He actually, comes and brings them to me. He does get locked up at night, and he's neutered and microchipped. But he does help the community with rats also, so I don't want him hit by many cars. Yes, that's all.
Thank you very much. Jim McLean.
My name is Jim McLean from 6 Crown Street. Oh, sorry, number 5 Crown Street. I'd like to start to say that we're not against development in Launceston or in our street. It's welcome, actually. But the community development should be required. Safety first is a priority. The narrow streets of Crown and Twining Street will be impacted by an unbelievable traffic load of 1,200 vehicle movements per day, which is over a 900% increase. If you can let that sink in, that's quite a substantial amount. That then becomes a paramount safety concern for the residents and others who enjoy the ambience of Crown Street and Twining Street, which are unique in Launceston. The already saturated street parking in the surrounding area and the fact that the developer has only allocated half of the on-site parking that was required by the council, and I think that supports our objection. Thank you for letting me speak.
No problem. Next one that is Judy McLean, Councillor.
Hi, I'm Judy McLean, and we actually live at 5 Crown Street. We've been there for 20 years. Firstly, I'd like to address the uptick in vehicle movements that would be generated by the proposed development, as it will have a huge impact on the area. Traffic is anticipated, and this is actually by the developer's own traffic management report, to increase from 150 vehicles to a whopping 1,234 movements per day, which represents an increase of over 919%. I believe state planning considers 10 to 15% increase to be acceptable. Minimal on-site parking has been included in the plan, and dare I say, parking is already at a premium within a kilometre of the proposed site, and almost impossible to find a vacant spot after 7 a.m. on any weekday. This will result in frustrated drivers trolling surrounding areas looking for a parking spot in a usually fully occupied area in order to be on time for their appointment, and probably rendering them into a state of mild panic, which in itself poses a safety issue. There is actually a litany of safety concerns, not only for other motorists because of the huge uptick in uncontrolled traffic negotiating the narrow streets, but access for emergency vehicles who are always trying to get somewhere in an already busy area, plus of course you've got the pedestrians. This is a unique section of Launceston with heritage homes and narrow streets, and this development will have a significant negative impact on the people who live here. I implore you to imagine what a major project like this would have on your own area, and not make it a tick box exercise, but to consider how this will reduce the livability of nearby residents and your duty of care to those residents. Any development should be sympathetic to the area, and we believe the issues we've outlined strongly indicate this proposed development is not an appropriate fit.
Thank you. Betty Hall.
I'm Betty Hall. I live at 111 Margaret Street. It's my belief that Council has failed in its duty of care to alert residents and community of this development. I received a note from a concerned neighbour just after Christmas. On the 29th of December, I emailed the Mayor. I've yet to have a response. We could find nothing on your website about this development, and yet suddenly we have a special meeting. There's been an obvious lack of transparency and care. It's my understanding that councillors have not attended a workshop on the proposed site, nor have they looked critically and systematically at the increased traffic impact, increased parking impact, and increased safety issues that will develop in this area. They seem to have very little, if any, comprehension or concern of the difficulties already faced by this community with parking, traffic, and issues, let alone safety. So we've got 40 vehicles going in and out every hour, yet the developer is only choosing to provide 30 parking spaces. Quite ridiculous when councillors said they should have 60. I live on Margaret Street. If I need tradespeople to visit my home, I have to remove my car from my driveway to let the tradespeople have access to my house. But where do I find a parking space? I have to go out at about midnight or dawn to get a parking space on Margaret Street. Surely developers have the responsibility to provide adequate parking for their clients and not assume that our community can absorb a problem which is of their making, not ours. The traffic flow has been said to increase by 700%. This isn't just on Crown Street, it's all the roads that lead into that. And I really feel that council should really go and visit this area and see just what it is like to live and try and park in that area and vehicular access. I just feel you should go down and really assess this area properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Simeone.
G'day everyone. I'm standing here today with a little bit of a different discussion from last time. I understand the frustrations from all the locals. It's a pretty ordinary area for parking as it is now. I'm actually seeing this as a bit of an opportunity now and the future plans that we're going to produce to fix up that area a little bit as well. It probably neglects a proper parking and driving sort of system through that area in general. But what I'm here to discuss is the extension of time we've requested. So we've done, and I think this is apologies, because I think Christmas, putting a DA in, timeframes, it possibly was rushed by the people that were putting it together. So we've done some actual figures on Keezer that was from Hobart, that's current, that's actual, and the movements are only around the 280 cars per day. So what we need to do now, and it's going to put pressure on contracts and time and building. My client or the developer is going to take that on board. He's going to pay extra and longer time frame. We need like a month, I think it's 27th of February, end of February, to make sure we get the figures right. It was rushed before. We also want to, and after meeting some locals down there and people that work in that area, I think we sort of neglected as developers, not me myself, but the architects and developer, I think consultation with the community. So after day before yesterday, myself and the developer went down, and we can work with the garden, open to that. We're open to work with Travenco, the other business owners and the local community with the right outcome. And I think with that traffic down to 280, but we have to get that proper assessed, but is actual from Hobart. I think as a group, we'd like to have that time to make sure we do this properly. I think it's a great thing for the heritage of that area, and I think this traffic report has ruined, hopefully hasn't ruined an opportunity for a global business to come to Launceston and to make that heritage building appropriate for what it deserves to be. And I think we can work with the community to make this right.
Thank you. Tim Rickson.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tim Rickson from Travenco Engineering. I'm here again to discuss the potential traffic problems we can foresee with the development of Crown Street. Again, we're not against development in the area, but as a business owner, our duty of care is paramount. And is the council following their duty of care by supporting a 900% increase in daily traffic movements? For over 40 years, we have successfully operated the steel construction business out of the current location in Crown Street. We safely facilitate the unloading of general freight trucks daily, excuse me, plus delivery trucks of at least 3 times a week, delivered by 20-metre trucks. The increased congestion in the doorway to the development car park, which is directly opposite our doorway, will cause significant delays, to both parties while we attempt to unload trucks by forklifts. I realise on the development plan that they have vehicles turning towards Franklin Street, but common sense tells me that people are going to turn both ways. At times when vehicles park illegally on the no parking zone in Twining Street, we have to reverse 20-metre trucks up Crown Street onto Franklin Street, and I'm sure you can appreciate a very difficult and unsafe situation. And I can see this happening more often with the parking. It seems unclear how the number of increased traffic movements has been calculated, and no one has been able to clarify this yet. I spoke to the builder and the developer on Tuesday, and they indicated that the traffic movements were overestimated. But how do we confirm traffic movements? The on-street parking for staff and clients of the new development will obviously be impossible in the area. The on-street parking situation continues to worsen with the increase in health hub buildings and hospital staff needing long-term parking. On a personal note, we're obviously not happy to lose 2 parking spots in Crown Street beside our business, further adding to the shortage of the parking in the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Adam Smith.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Adam Smith, and I'm also here to talk against the development on behalf of Travanco Engineering. As I presented at the last council meeting, there's a document that's come off the council website for the shopping and area business parking frequently asked questions, where it says the council will not support a change to any parking situations to support one business. Councillor Proust was nice enough to hand this up for review last time, and the CEO stated, and I quote, that it does not relate to the planning authority or the planning scheme, which is apparently what we're meeting under today. So does that mean that all statements and comments and advice and documents and rules and regulations on the Launceston City Council are null and void when we meet under the planning regulation? I can't see all that being turfed out the window just because we're under a different umbrella. Regarding the 66 car spaces, and Jen Welsh commented last time on the proposed solution, we only need 30 because there's 34 that are currently allocated or permitted for the existing business. They're physically not there. Regardless of what the documentation says that the council has, that there has to be 34 there under the current situation, they're physically not there. And if the council had conducted the toolbox and visited the site, you would see there's physically not 34 there. So to use that as part of the equation for the proposed solution to narrow it down to 30 is completely irrelevant. So it's factually not true. We appreciate the council considering additional parking at the Franklin end of Crown Street, which is note 27 on today's agenda. Unfortunately, that's directly opposite a loading zone which is there for Thrive at the moment. And for Thrive to be able to manipulate forklifts in and out to be able to unload service vehicles, you'd actually risk damaging the vehicles there. And as Tim commented, we have 3 to 4 semi-trailers a week, as you can imagine, 12, 15, 18 metre loads of steel. To articulate the semi off Franklin Street into Crown Street, we've had people illegally parking there because it's currently a no parking zone. To get those vehicles moved can take considerable time. So you can imagine a semi-truck sitting in Franklin Street for 20 minutes. It's just not practical and not safe. And I'd just like to finally say and appeal to the councillors, as persons elected to these positions to represent the community by us, the community, please have a think about us and the lifelong impacts this development will have on us. You can choose today to approve this development, then move on with your lives and never give us a second thought. Unfortunately, we don't get the opportunity to do this. We'll be the ones living with the consequences. And as one councillor said in the previous meeting, if this was happening where I lived, I'd do the same. It shouldn't matter whether you live in the area or not. If you wouldn't agree for this to go ahead adjacent to your residence and having a detrimental impact on your family's lives and livelihood, why would you support it going ahead next to ours? Thank you.
Thank you. Kerry Hayward.
My name's Kerry Hayward and I live at 154 Bathurst Street. 38 parking spaces are what the planners would have us believe exist on this site. They are phantoms. There are at best 6 spaces and they are listed to belong to a lease being advertised for the old computer store. The report the planners rely on states that development reparking for this gym alone requires 61 spaces. That's 40 clients, 15 staff, a few office. The planners skewed the numbers by adding into these phantom spaces that are currently, the report states the gym alone requires 61. The planners also like us to believe a 500 square space not developed is going to be used for storage. Not a good return for a developer who has spent millions of dollars on purchasing a building, millions on development. There's already been correspondence between the developer and council to agree this space being for 5 apartments, so we'd need 10 spaces. The gym is 30 to 40 spaces short with no on-street parking to manage this. The new agenda says to investigate undertaking 2 new street parking spaces. Crown Street is 6 metres wide. Do your sums. There's already parking on the west side, parking on the east side. That's 4 metres. It leaves the top end of Crown Street, if they want this to go ahead, be 2 metres. That makes Crown Street one way. and this is the only main entrance into Crown Franklin to this proposal. The traffic report glosses over the intersection of Bathurst and Franklin Street due to a meeting held between the council and Street Growth. There were no minutes taken of these meetings and no outcomes have been produced. As per Planning Act, we have asked on numerous occasions for information to be supplied from the council, but none has been forthcoming. We contacted the local police to get their thoughts on the increase of traffic to 12,000. They were gobsmacked. It'll be the first responders who have to deal with the consequences if this go ahead. I was trying to find the right words to describe this DI, and I settled on a word my grandmother used to use when she thought something was not right. She would have said, this DA has a smell about it. This is why we've asked the Minister for Local Government to look into this DA. Councillors, you have a duty of care to ensure the safety of not only the people of Launceston, but everybody that you visit. Councillors, I urge you to vote the DA not to be approved. One other thing, the development in Hobart that he's mentioned is only 490 square metres, this one is 1350.
Thank you. Louise Millwood.
I did have quite a large speech prepared, and it seems that everybody's covered this, and the council staff's comments before the meeting has probably changed what I was going to say. We all know the traffic is the main issue here, and there's been suggested an extension of time to address that traffic disparity. The developer builder here cites the Hobart Kaiser development, and it only has 280 units of cars. The development in Hobart, on a quick Google, is 490 square metres. So it's a third of the size of the development we're looking at now. So you times that by 3, we're going to smack back at those large numbers of traffic. Doesn't matter how long it takes us to assess this, how much extra time you're going to allow the developer. There would be a business model by the physio people to make some money. To make some money, they have to have X amount of appointments to an hour, and this is 40 appointments an hour. The development in Hobart that was referred to with only 280 cars is smack bang in the middle of Argyle Street. What's that, 3 or 4 lanes wide? It would have constant public transport at its door. This development doesn't. I will revert back to my comments. My concerns today are not simply about the development, it's about the process that has been used. The key deficiencies in traffic, parking and safety have been identified. They appear to have been managed around rather than independently resolved. Critical reports and meeting records relied upon by the planners in the assessment have not been made available, creating a reasonable perception that the outcome was shaped in advance. It also appears that our councillors have been placed in a very difficult position. They've been asked to endorse a decision influenced by pressures that in the process that has not been fully transparent. This is not about opposing development. This is about protecting the integrity of process and council's decision making. The councillors here have one clear tool, that's your vote today. You should deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Madison Shepherd.
Hello, Madison Shepherd of 10 Crown Street. Under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, Council must exercise its powers in a way that furthers the Schedule 1 objectives. These include avoiding, remedying or mitigating adverse effects, promoting a pleasant, efficient and safe environment for living, and conserving buildings and places of historic interest or special cultural value. I want to be clear that I'm not opposing development in principle or this development. What I'm asking Council to consider is whether this proposal, as currently framed, demonstrates compliance with those statutory obligations in practice. Crown Street contains heritage-listed and historically significant homes, many of which are particularly vulnerable to vibration, ground movement and repeated traffic loading. The planning framework requires Council to avoid and mitigate foreseeable adverse effects before they occur, not rely on residents to prove damage after the fact. Planning impacts are not confined to the site boundary. Construction and operational activity do not stop at property lines, and Crown Street is directly exposed, as is Twining. Where properties are included on the Tasmanian Heritage Register, the Historical Cultural Heritage Act 1995 recognises the need to protect registered places and manage impacts on their fabric and setting. Will Council require enforceable conditions such as independent pre-work dilapidation reports, monitoring during construction, post-construction reassessment, and a development-funded remediation process so that heritage protection is guaranteed rather than assumed. This proposal will generate ongoing traffic and parking demand, including staff movements, patient appointments, drop-off pickups, and peak gym activity. Council has received a traffic impact assessment estimating up to approximately 120 vehicle movements per hour at peak times. While it concludes the broader network may operate acceptably, it also identifies constraints on Crown Street, including narrow road width, access limitations, and on-street parking impacts. The Tasmanian Planning Scheme and the state planning provisions, particularly the Road and Railway Asset Code, require Council to protect the safety and efficiency of the road network and prevent unreasonable impacts on surrounding streets. The proposal includes operating hours of 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week, which represent a significant intensification of activity next to established homes outside of the standard business hours. Schedule 1 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 requires explicit consideration of social effects and the creation of a safe and pleasant living environment. Community benefit does not override this obligation. Early morning and evening activity will introduce noise, vehicle movements, lighting and general disturbance at times when residents can reasonably expect quiet enjoyment of their homes, as is the current living environment on the street. If this application is approved, residents should be seeking to ask Council to ensure that approval is consistent with its statutory obligations by protecting heritage homes through enforceable assessment and monitoring, managing traffic impacts permanently and in accordance with the planning scheme, and preserving residential amenity, including appropriate controls on operating hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Maddie Rose.
Hi, Madeline Rose. I live at 158 Bathurst Street, and I, along with all my neighbours and the community where I live, are deeply concerned about the impact of this business's future projections that are not in any current reports. So what we're looking at here isn't just what's been already presented or what could possibly present in a month's time of reassessment and trying to find numbers. I think it's important to listen to the person that is actually living in the community and that is every day affected by decisions that you all are making as part of our community. You're representatives of us, of the people of this community. And at this point, I appeal to you to consider it's one of 4 leased properties in this area of this warehouse component. This is only one of 4. So this proposed business, which I'm not opposed to, I think it's great to bring in new businesses to our community. I think it's great to offer opportunities to our citizens and our fellow people here in this community that can help with their health. I think that's great. But the concern is that this is one of 4 buildings on this site. So we're already concerned as people that live in that area, how this parking and traffic and safety and access is going to impact upon us. One of 4 buildings is already causing this. So imagine when the other 3 get occupied. There isn't enough parking, full stop. LGH, coming 120 private bed hospital, coming other aspects of that community in that area, we're already slammed. So if you don't show up there between Monday and Friday, normal business hours, to see the flow of traffic is already impacted, you have no idea. You have no idea. We live there. This is our home. And your home is your sanctuary. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Maddie. I don't have any other speakers listed. Are there any others that haven't spoken that would like to? Okay, well, currently we have a mover and a seconder for the motion that in accordance with section 51 and 57 Land Use Planning Approvals Act 1993 and the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, Launceston's permit be granted for business and professional services and sport and recreation change of a use to a medical, physiotherapy, consultancy and gymnasium, including associated works at 160 to 172A Bathurst Street, Launceston, subject to the following conditions, which are outlined in the papers. Would anyone like to move another motion?
Stand to move a procedural motion. Thank you, Chair. And as I do, I thank the mover and the seconder for the purposes of discussion today, because otherwise that wouldn't have happened. And in moving this procedural motion, I'd also like to acknowledge the representatives and Mr. Simeone, that the goodwill that is evident today that has taken place recently, and long may that continue, but the procedural motion is to defer this decision today for allowing that to continue and for this to come back no later than, I do believe, is it the 27th of February?
It would come to a meeting on the 19th of February because the extension would cease on the 27th.
Whenever it comes back, no later than the 27th is the extension, so that would be the deferral motion. I think no more discussion takes place after that, so I'll just say right now I live in South Launceston and suffer exactly the same scenarios as what you're discussing. So I think we're all very well aware of the past parking pressures in the area, but that's it. Thank you.
Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Pentridge, thank you. We'll now vote on the procedural motion. All those in favour? No. Unfortunately, it's procedural. You can't. That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. We've deferred. We perhaps should have the motion up on the meeting. So is that up there? Thank you. So is that as the...
Yeah, certainly near enough. I mean, it's being deferred until the 27th, I believe. I thought that should be captured in the motion.
Yeah. Okay, well, being a procedural motion, the matter is now deferred, so we now have nothing further to discuss under the Planning Authority. So we'll now go to the meeting close, and we'll close the meeting at 10 past 11. Thank you very much. We'll see you again on the 22nd.